Hello, welcome to the channel. Get ready for a touching story filled with surprises. Today we will follow the emotional journey of Ethan, who returns to his hometown and discovers a disturbing truth. His mother, Mary, is trapped in a life full of secrets and suffering imposed by the past. This is a story of justice, redemption, and courage that promises to captivate you from beginning to end. Before we start, feel free to subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications to receive our upcoming exciting videos, and leave a comment letting us know which city you are watching from. Now, enjoy every moment of this inspiring journey. What if, upon returning home, Ethan Mitchell discovered that the true enemy was much closer than he imagined? After nearly a decade away from Charleston, South Carolina, he felt an unexpected urgency to see his mother, Mary. The memory of sunny days from his childhood starkly contrasted with the reality that awaited him. Upon reuniting with Mary, Ethan was shocked to realize that the woman who was once full of life was now just a shadow of herself, trapped in a cycle of emotional abuse and financial manipulation at the hands of her stepfather, Richard Thompson. Determined to change this situation, Ethan found himself facing a dilemma that forced him to confront not only Richard, but also a past filled with family secrets and traumas. The environment in Charleston, which had once seemed welcoming, now felt hostile and heavy with tension. The city he had left behind in search of success now greeted him with an emotional weight he hadn't expected. Interactions with locals, who seemed to know more than they let on, fueled his anxiety, while his family memories were filled with a painful emptiness. As Ethan investigated his mother's life, he discovered that his uncle, Samuel Thompson, Richard's brother, was also involved in the conspiracy to control Mary's assets. The revelation that the roots of the problem ran deeper than he could have imagined left him distressed. The weight of the responsibility to change this reality fell on his shoulders, and the pressure to act was immense. In addition to fighting for his mother, Ethan needed to confront his own insecurities and traumas that had followed him since childhood. Amid this emotional storm, he met Luciana Gomez, a key witness who could help him gather the necessary evidence to take the case to court. His friendship with Luciana began unexpectedly when she approached him in a cafe, noticing the pain in his eyes. The unexpected connection between them became a strong foundation in his journey, challenging Ethan to rethink his priorities and what truly mattered in his life. Returning to Charleston was not just a reunion with his mother, but an opportunity to rediscover himself. The fight for Mary's dignity became a battle for his own identity. As Ethan grappled with what it meant to be a son, a successful man, and above all, a human being seeking justice in a world full of injustices. With each discovery, each step toward the truth, he became increasingly aware of the strength that love and resilience can provide in the quest for a better future. Thus, Ethan and Mary's story unfolded as a powerful testament to overcoming challenges and redemption, where together they would not only face the demons of the past, but also unite in a mission to help other women who suffer in silence. What started as a visit to Charleston transformed into a fight for justice and dignity, proving that even in the darkest shadows, the light of hope can shine brightly. Ethan felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on his shoulders, as if the city of Charleston were trying to drag him into the depths of his bitter memories. The first night he spent in his mother's house was marked by an uncomfortable silence. He looked around, observing the worn walls, the dust-covered furniture, and the lack of life that once filled those spaces. The presence of Richard, his stepfather, was a constant shadow, and Ethan knew he had to act quickly. The next morning, while having breakfast, Mary seemed distant, lost in thoughts that Ethan couldn't comprehend. He tried to engage her in conversation, but every question he asked seemed to reignite the pain in her eyes. Richard, on the other hand, was always nearby, watching every move, like a predator waiting for the right moment to strike. Ethan felt a knot in his stomach as he recalled the stories he had heard about the man, his manipulations, and the control he exerted over his mother. It was as if a mantle of oppression enveloped the house, making it hard to breathe. Determined to change the course of the situation, Ethan decided he needed to confront Richard. He wasn't sure how this conversation would unfold, but he was resolved not to let things drag on. The idea of facing a man who had so much power over his mother made him nervous. What if he failed? What if Richard dismissed him and, worse, retaliated against Mary? These questions tormented his mind as he walked toward his stepfather's house, each step heavier than the last. When he arrived at Richard's house, he felt a chill run down his spine. The man who opened the door was not just his stepfather. He was a symbol of everything Ethan hated about his childhood: tyranny, control, and a deep disdain for the needs of others. Richard smiled, but Ethan realized it was not a friendly smile. It was a smile of someone who felt in control. "Ethan, what a surprise," Richard said, his voice exuding false cordiality. "Come in." The feeling of being in a battlefield washed over him. With every word Richard spoke, Ethan remembered how that man had destroyed his mother's life. The air was thick with tension. They talked about trivial matters, but Ethan knew he needed to be direct. After a few minutes of superficial conversation, he gathered his courage and said, "Richard, we need to talk about my mother." The instant change in Richard's expression was startling. The smile vanished, replaced by a look that could pierce steel. "About what exactly, Ethan? Mary is fine. She doesn't need you here." Anger and frustration began to bubble up inside Ethan. "She's not fine, and you know it. She deserves a better life, away from you." Richard laughed, but it was not a joyful laugh. It was a laugh of disdain, as if Ethan were a child challenging an adult. "Do you really think you can do anything about it? You don't know what you're talking about. You're out of your depth." Ethan felt adrenaline coursing through his veins. Richard's words echoed in his mind, but he couldn't give up. What was at stake was his mother's life. "I will do whatever it takes to help her." This determination, however, was not enough to prevent the first obstacle that presented itself to Ethan. As he left Richard's house, he found Luciana at the entrance. Her expression was worried. "Ethan, you shouldn't have done that. Richard is dangerous." He took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "I know, but I can't just stand by while he mistreats my mother." Luciana hesitated, her concern evident. "I understand, but we need to be strategic. Richard won't hesitate to use everything at his disposal to protect what he considers his." The friendship that was beginning to form between them was about to be tested. Ethan's determination was strong, but Luciana brought forth a reality he didn't want to face. He needed to learn to be patient, to plan before acting. But how could he do that when the pain of his mother was so palpable? The emotional tension grew as Ethan struggled to find a balance between his need to act and the urgency to protect his mother. He knew he needed more than courage. He needed strategy, support, and, above all, resilience. With Luciana by his side, he felt he might have a chance, but doubt still loomed over them like a dark cloud ready to burst. Ethan was about to discover that the fight for his mother's dignity would not only be a battle against Richard, but also an internal journey, where each step would lead him to confront his own fears and insecurities. The seeds of doubt and pain were planted, but he was determined to find the light, even if it meant facing the deepest secrets of his own family. Ethan felt the weight of Luciana's words as he walked back home. The pressure in his chest was almost unbearable. He knew Richard was dangerous, but the idea of not acting left him in anguish. What could he do now? His mother's house felt more and more like a prison, and with each passing day, the image of Mary consumed him. Alone, hopeless, trapped in Richard's web. Upon entering the house, he found Mary sitting in the kitchen, staring out the window with a distant look. He hesitated before approaching her. "Mom, can we talk?" Ethan's voice was soft, but the anxiety weighed heavily in his words. Mary slowly turned to him, her gaze a mix of confusion and sadness. "About what, Ethan?" She seemed exhausted, as if the weight of the world was on her shoulders. "About Richard. I can't keep seeing you like this. He isn't good for you." The sincerity in Ethan's words made Mary look away, as if she were trying to shield herself from the truth he was exposing. "You don't know what you're saying. Richard is complicated," she replied, her voice trembling. "Complicated?" Ethan couldn't hide his frustration. "He's hurting you, Mom. I've seen it with my own eyes." His tone rose and he realized he was losing control. "It's not that simple, Ethan," Mary murmured, her expression showing pain and resignation. "He helped me in tough times. I don't know how to live without him." Those words cut Ethan like a knife. He had always known Richard had a certain power over his mother, but hearing her dependence left him desolate. It was as if he was fighting against a ghost that couldn't be exorcised. "But you deserve more. I can't just stand by while he controls you." The conversation was going nowhere. Frustration grew, and Ethan decided he needed a plan. He couldn't confront Richard without better understanding the situation. The next day, he sought out Luciana to discuss their options. They met at a small cafe, the aroma of fresh coffee mingling with the sound of conversations in the background, creating a cozy atmosphere, but Ethan's worry was palpable. "I don't know how to help my mom," he confessed, his voice low and tense. "Richard has her under control and she doesn't see it." Luciana listened attentively, her eyes reflecting empathy. "We need a different approach. You need to understand more about their past. What led her to be with him? And what does Richard really have over her?" "I don't know. I just know he's manipulative," Ethan replied, frustration rising within him. "Then we need proof. Let's find out more about Richard. Someone must know about him," Luciana suggested, her determination growing. Ethan felt a wave of hope, but also a rising fear. They had a goal, but the path ahead was still uncertain. That decision would lead them into dangerous territory, and he didn't know what they would find. In the following days, they began to investigate. They spoke with neighbors, gathered information, and even sought out old friends of Mary who might offer some perspective. With each new discovery, Richard's image grew darker. They found out he had a history of abusive relationships, and the emotional manipulation Mary endured was a repeating pattern. The pressure mounted. Ethan felt the weight of each discovery. It was as if the truth was becoming an unbearable burden. Anger and helplessness consumed him, and he found himself in a cycle of frustration. With every step they took, it seemed Richard was always one step ahead. During one of their investigations, Ethan and Luciana met an old friend of Mary who revealed details about Richard's controlling behavior. He isolated her from everyone. "Ethan, she has no friends, no support. He wants her alone, dependent on him," the man said, his voice filled with concern. Those words echoed in Ethan's mind. It wasn't just a fight for his mother. It was a battle against a system of oppression that Richard had built. He felt that with every step they took, he was moving further away from his mother, who was becoming more trapped. The pain of that realization was agonizing. That night, as he tried to sleep, Ethan's thoughts swirled like a whirlwind. He felt lost, unsure of how to help his mother. The idea of failing tormented him, and the pressure to act left him anxious. He needed to be strong, not just for himself, but for Mary. But doubt and fear were piling up, threatening to crumble all his determination. Ethan knew that the next approach against Richard needed to be careful, but how could he plan when time was running out? The emotional tension was rising, and he felt that the path to his mother's freedom was becoming darker. With each passing day, the hope of rescuing Mary seemed more distant, and the battle was just beginning. Ethan sat down at his kitchen table, his eyes fixed on a blank sheet of paper resting before him. He had thought of so many things to write, so many words he wanted to organize to explain to Luciana how he was feeling, but everything seemed to slip from his mind. The frustration of not knowing how to help his mother consumed him, and the weight of responsibility left him paralyzed. That morning, he and Luciana had planned to investigate more about Richard, but something inside him felt reluctant. He didn't just want to gather information, he wanted to do something that would really make a difference. What if everything they were doing was in vain? The fear of failing haunted him. As he pondered, the phone rang, breaking the silence. He answered, recognizing Luciana's voice on the other end. "Ethan, you need to come here. It's about your mom." The urgency in her voice made his heart race. "What happened?" he asked, feeling a knot in his stomach. "Richard. He showed up. It's serious. You need to come quickly." The line went silent for a moment, and panic overtook Ethan. "I'm on my way," he replied before hanging up, his mind already in turmoil. Arriving at Luciana's apartment, he found her in the living room, wearing a worried expression. "She wasn't home when I arrived. I went to her house and found this." Luciana handed Ethan a crumpled note. His mother's handwriting was unmistakable, but the words felt like a punch to the gut. "Ethan, don't look for Richard. He told me you're getting involved where you shouldn't. I can't lose you too. I need to be at peace." Despair filled Ethan's chest. "No, she can't be serious," he shouted, his voice echoing in the room. "Richard is manipulating her. He can't have control over her like this." Luciana looked at him sadly. "Ethan, we need to act. This isn't just about you and your mom, it's about Richard. He's dangerous." Adrenaline coursed through Ethan's veins. He knew the situation had taken an unexpected and terrifying turn. What had once been a struggle to rescue his mother now felt like a race against time. The revelation that Richard had managed to drive a wedge between him and her was a devastating blow. He felt powerless and frustrated, as if he were trapped in a snare. "We need to confront him," he said, determination rising. "If he's threatening my mom, I can't just stand by." Luciana hesitated, but the intensity in Ethan's eyes made her agree. "Be careful, Ethan. He's more cunning than you think." As they left the apartment, Ethan's mind was ablaze with thoughts of protection and anger. He couldn't allow Richard to continue hurting his mother. The idea of confronting him made him nervous, but he knew he could no longer wait. That night, Ethan decided he needed to go to Richard's house. He mentally reviewed what he would say, trying to prepare himself for anything. The image of his mother, sad and isolated, propelled him forward. He was about to enter dangerous territory, but the strength of his love and concern guided him. Upon arriving at Richard's house, Ethan knocked firmly on the door. His heart raced in his chest, and he felt as if he were about to face a monster. When Richard opened the door, an arrogant smile spread across his face. "Ethan, what a surprise." "We need to talk," Ethan said, trying to keep his voice steady despite the fear overwhelming him. Richard tilted his head, his gaze challenging. "About what? Your mother? You should know she's better off without you around." Rage bubbled up inside Ethan, but he forced himself to take a deep breath. "You can't keep manipulating her like this. I know what you're doing. It's time to stop." Richard laughed, a cold, sarcastic sound. "Do you really think you can intimidate me? Your mother made her choices. You know nothing about what she needs." Those words hit Ethan like a punch to the stomach. He realized Richard was right in one way. Mary had chosen to stay with him. But the idea that his mother was caught in a web of control made him furious. He needed to show her the truth. But how could he do that if she wasn't willing to see? The confrontation escalated, and Ethan realized he was in a much more complicated situation than he had imagined. Richard was a skilled manipulator, and the battle he was fighting was not just against him, but against his mother's own perception. Feeling powerless, Ethan left Richard's house with a heavy heart. The revelation that his mother was so deeply involved made him reconsider his choices. He realized he couldn't just confront Richard. He needed to find a way to open his mother's eyes to the truth she was ignoring. With each step he took back home, doubt and frustration settled more deeply within him. He felt as if he were fighting against a rising tide, and the struggle was just beginning. The pressure to protect his mother and the need to confront Richard became an even greater burden, and Ethan knew he needed a new plan, a new approach. It was time to rethink everything. Ethan was returning home with a tumultuous mind. His confrontation with Richard had been more than he expected. He felt a mix of anger and helplessness. and the frustration of not being able to protect his mother consumed him. Richard's words echoed in his head. She made her choices. How could his mother choose a man who manipulated him and kept him away from her? As he entered the house, the darkness of the environment seemed to reflect his emotional state. The walls, normally comforting, now felt oppressive. He let himself fall onto the sofa, his mind filled with confusing thoughts. The image of his mother, sad and distant, haunted him. What could he do to help her? He had no answers, only an emptiness that left him more lost than before. A few minutes passed, and the phone rang again. It was Luciana. "Ethan, are you okay?" The concern in her voice brought him a bit of comfort. He took a deep breath before responding. "No, I don't know what to do. Richard is manipulating my mom, and she doesn't see it. I feel like I'm losing her." "Ethan, don't give up. We have to find a way to help her," Luciana said, her voice firm. "Maybe you need to talk to her in a different way, something that makes her see the truth." He thought about Luciana's words. What she suggested made sense. But how could he approach her? The fear of being rejected, just as she had rejected the idea that Richard was a threat, paralyzed him. "What if she doesn't believe me? What if I end up pushing her further away?" Luciana hesitated. "You can't think like that. What more can you lose? You have to try, Ethan. At least for yourself." Her words resonated in his mind. He couldn't afford to stand still, waiting for things to resolve themselves. Determination slowly began to grow within him. He needed to find a way to connect with his mother, to show her that Richard was not the man she thought he was. The next day, Ethan decided he would go to his mother's house. He mentally prepared for the meeting. What would he say? How could he convince her to listen? As he drove, his heart raced erratically. With every traffic light, every turn, he felt the pressure mount. He arrived at her doorstep and hesitated for a moment. What if she simply sent him away? But the image of her, so vulnerable, urged him to ring the doorbell. When Mary opened the door, her smile was instantly replaced by a look of surprise and concern. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" "We need to talk, Mom," he said, his voice firm yet gentle. He stepped inside and saw the familiar environment, but it now felt different. Everything seemed darker, heavier. "It's about Richard." She frowned, clearly defensive. "He's been good to me, Ethan." "You don't understand." "I understand more than you think," Ethan replied, trying to stay calm. "I talked to him yesterday, and he is not who you think he is. He is manipulating you." "How can you say that?" Anger began to rise in her voice. "You're just being dramatic, as always." That was a blow. He closed his eyes for a moment, trying to find the right words. "Mom, I care about you. Richard doesn't want what's best for you. He is trying to control you, and you can't see it." Mary took a deep breath, her expression softening a bit. "Ethan, I'm fine. I just want to live in peace." "But you're not living in peace." He felt frustration overflow. "You've distanced yourself from me and everyone because of him. Look at you." Her expression changed, and Ethan realized he had touched on something. "I don't know if I can trust you," she whispered, vulnerability appearing in her eyes. Those words cut Ethan's heart. He felt so powerless. "Mom, please, you need to listen to me. Richard is not the person you believe him to be. I just want you to be happy, but not like this." Silence hung between them, and Ethan knew the struggle was far from over. He realized that, despite his efforts, the battle for his mother's mind and heart would be much harder than he imagined. Richard had planted seeds of doubt that were now blossoming in her mind. Ethan left her house with a mix of hope and despair. He had managed to open a small space in his mother's mind, but the fight was far from over. Richard was a cunning adversary, and he would need more than just words to rescue his mother. The journey was just beginning, and new obstacles would arise at every turn. But inside, a flame of determination began to burn. He would not give up. Not while there was a chance to bring his mother back. Ethan walked through the streets, his mind racing after the conversation with his mother. He felt that he had taken an important step, But he also realized that the road ahead would be filled with challenges. With each step, doubts plagued him. He wondered if he truly had the power to change her situation. What could he do to convince her that Richard was not the person she thought he was? As the days went by, Ethan's determination transformed into a commitment. He began to mentally prepare for the confrontations that lay ahead. He knew he needed to be patient, but frustration often threatened to take over. He started meeting with Luciana more frequently. His conversations with her not only comforted him, but also helped him see things from a different perspective. Luciana had a special knack for listening and offering practical advice, which became an important foundation on his journey. "You need to show your mother that you are on her side, not against her," Luciana suggested in one of their meetings. "Try to connect with her about feelings, not just about Richard." Ethan pondered her words. He realized that he often spoke defensively, as if he were attacking her choice. He needed to be more empathetic. After reflecting, he decided that in the next conversation with his mother, he would focus on expressing his genuine love and concern for her. The next day, he called Mary and asked to meet again. When he arrived at her house, he felt calmer and more centered. When she opened the door, Ethan smiled and said, "Hi, Mom, I brought your favorite cake." Her expression softened a bit, and he realized that small gestures could make a difference. They sat at the kitchen table, and he watched her as she tasted the cake. "It's good," she commented, and he felt a little more at ease. "I just wanted to spend some time with you, Mom. Not just talk about Richard, but about us." Mary looked at him, curiosity mixed with distrust. "About us? Yes, I feel like with Richard, you have been distant. I worry about you. I just want you to be happy, but I can't ignore what I see." She hesitated, but the conversation flowed more naturally. Ethan talked about his memories, the happy moments they had shared. He shared his insecurities and how he felt when he saw her pulling away. Throughout the conversation, Ethan realized that the love he felt for his mother was stronger than any fear or doubt. He began to understand the value of emotions and how they could be a powerful bond. Little by little, Mary started to open her heart. She talked about the pressures she faced, how she felt alone, and how Richard seemed to offer a temporary solution to her problems. Ethan listened attentively, feeling a new connection forming between them. He understood that instead of simply trying to save his mother, he needed to help her find her own strength. That afternoon, after hours of heartfelt conversation, Mary finally said, "I hadn't realized how much I was pulling away from you. I miss us." Her words touched Ethan's heart. He understood that while the battle against Richard would be difficult, the real struggle was about reconnecting with his mother and helping her rediscover her own strength. Over time, they began to build a new relationship. Ethan became a constant support for Mary, and she began to question her own feelings and choices more. Richard was still present, but the emotional trap he had created began to slowly unravel. The love and honesty that Ethan offered were the keys that opened the door to transformation. Ethan learned that it wasn't just about fighting against Richard, but about nurturing the love and trust between him and his mother. He realized that his own strength lay in being vulnerable and open, and that true happiness wasn't about winning a battle, but about being present in the lives of those he loved. He also discovered that asking for help and accepting Luciana's support was crucial. Their friendship deepened, and he learned that he was not alone in this journey. Together, they faced challenges, and it made him realize that personal growth often comes through collaboration and mutual support. Ethan's journey was far from over, but with each step, he felt stronger and more confident. He had learned to value what truly mattered: human connection, empathy, and the courage to face one's own fears. Life was full of uncertainties, but now he knew he had the tools necessary to tackle any challenge that came his way. Ethan was about to face his greatest challenge. With each passing day, Richard's presence in his mother's life grew stronger, and Ethan's worry escalated. He knew he needed to act before it was too late. The conversation he had with Mary had opened a door, but he felt there was still much to be done. What he didn't expect was that the opportunity to confront Richard would come in an unexpected way. It was an ordinary afternoon when Ethan received a message from Luciana. Richard is at the cafe near your house. He seems to be arguing with your mom. You should go there. Ethan's heart raced. He knew this was the chance he needed, but at the same time, fear and doubt swept over him. He didn't want to cause more conflict, but the thought of seeing his mother suffer pushed him to act. Upon arriving at the cafe, he spotted Mary and Richard sitting at a table. His mother's expression was one of discomfort, while Richard gestured intensely. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He could no longer remain on the sidelines. With firm steps, he approached the table, his gaze fixed on Richard. "Hi, Mom. Can I join you?" Ethan's voice came out stronger than he expected. Mary looked at him, surprised and a bit relieved. Richard, however, did not hide his irritation. "What are you doing here, Ethan?" he asked, his tone dismissive. "I'm here because I care about my mom," Ethan replied, not breaking eye contact, "and I can't let you talk to her like that." The tension at the table was palpable, as if the air was charged with electricity. "You don't understand anything about us," Richard retorted, trying to assert himself. "Mary made her choices. You should respect them." Ethan felt a wave of anger, but he remembered the conversations he had with Luciana. He needed to be different. "I'm not here to disrespect anyone. I'm here because I'm her son. Richard, you may have your reasons, but I see how you treat her. That's not love." Mary looked between the two, her eyes filled with confusion and pain. "Ethan, please." "No, Mom," Ethan insisted, his gaze never leaving Richard. "You deserve to be treated with respect and care. Isn't that what you're looking for? I just want you to see the truth." Richard stood up, trying to intimidate Ethan. "You don't know who you're dealing with, kid. I'm the only one who takes care of her now." "Taking care isn't controlling," Ethan replied, feeling strength grow within him. "Taking care is supporting, being by her side in difficult times. You're not doing that, and I can't stay silent." Richard's expression morphed into a mix of anger and desperation. He realized that the control he thought he had was threatened. Mary, for her part, seemed to be waking up to reality. "Richard, I don't know if this is right," she finally said, her voice trembling. "Ethan, you're right. Sometimes I feel trapped." Mary's declaration was like a blow. Richard looked at her, the expression of authority beginning to crumble. "You can't be serious." "I am, Richard. I need more than this. I need the freedom to be myself," Mary asserted, her voice strengthening. Ethan felt elated. He saw the transformation in his mother, the courage rising within her, and it gave him even more strength. "Mom, you're not alone. I'm here and I always will be." Richard, realizing he was losing the battle, looked at Ethan with contempt. "You're going to regret getting involved." "No, I won't," Ethan said firmly. "I choose you, Mom, always." With that, Richard turned and stormed out of the cafe, anger etched on his face. The tension at the table dissolved, and a comforting silence filled the air. Mary looked at Ethan, tears in her eyes. But now there was a glimmer of hope. "Thank you, Ethan." "I didn't know if I could free myself," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You've always been strong, Mom. I just wanted you to see that," he replied, hugging her tightly. "We'll get through this together." That moment was a turning point in Ethan and Mary's lives. He realized that true strength didn't just come from fighting against external challenges, but from creating space for love and trust to flourish. Their relationship was being rebuilt, and the journey was far from over, but now there was a new understanding between them. Ethan felt that regardless of the challenges ahead, he had found his voice and inner strength. He learned that love could be a beacon in the darkness and that sometimes the greatest victory is simply standing by those we love, ready to face any storm. Ethan and Mary left the cafe with a new sense of purpose. Richard's words still echoed in their minds, but the feeling of liberation was palpable. The fresh afternoon air enveloped them, bringing a new hope. Ethan looked at his mother, who was now walking beside him with a lighter expression. "Mom, "Do you feel okay?" he asked, concerned. "Better than I have felt in a long time," Mary replied with a shy smile. "I'm grateful for you being there. I didn't realize I needed someone to remind me of what I truly want." "You've always known. You were just a bit stuck," Ethan said, trying to comfort her. "But now, you can be who you really are." They decided to head home, but the journey felt shorter. The conversation they had in the cafe had opened up a space for dialogue that had previously seemed impossible. Once they were home, Mary sat at the kitchen table while Ethan prepared a snack. The smell of baking bread brought a sense of normalcy to that moment, which had been anything but ordinary. "Mom, what do you want to do now?" Ethan asked, pouring her a glass of juice. "I don't know. Maybe seek help," Mary started, hesitantly. "I've set aside my own desires for so long. I feel like I need support to better understand what I want for my life." "That's great, Mom. We can look for a therapist or a support group together." "You don't have to go through this alone," Ethan suggested, sitting down across from her. He felt a wave of pride seeing his mother express her feelings. Mary looked at her son, her eyes shining with gratitude. "You've always been so mature, Ethan. I wonder if you realize how much that helps me. I just want you to be happy, Mom. And if that means facing some hard truths, then we'll do it together," he replied sincerely. The connection between them was stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Mary began to open up more about her feelings and insecurities. Their relationship transformed into a safe space where they could share their concerns and hopes. Ethan also started to reflect on his own emotions. He realized that even though he had confronted Richard, there was still much to work through within himself. The courage he felt in confronting the man who threatened his peace of mind also showed him that he needed to be honest with himself about his own insecurities. One night, while they were watching a movie, Ethan decided to share something that had been bothering him. "Mom, I'm afraid that even with all this, you still feel lost. Sometimes, I feel like I'm not enough to help you." Mary paused the movie and turned to him. "Ethan, you are more than enough. You've given me the strength I needed to get back up. Don't underestimate yourself. We need each other, and that's what matters." Those words touched Ethan deeply. He began to understand that he didn't have to be perfect. True strength came from being present, listening, and supporting one another. Their relationship was not just about challenges, but also about the love and partnership they were building together. As Mary dedicated herself to finding professional help, Ethan also decided to seek a space where he could express his own emotions. He started attending a youth group that dealt with family issues. With each meeting, he felt himself becoming stronger and more capable of handling difficulties. Their lives wouldn't become magical overnight, but Ethan realized they were on the right path. The weight that had once hung over them began to dissipate. The honest conversations, shared tears, and moments of joy were shaping a new narrative in their lives. Ethan looked at his mother as she spoke animatedly about her new discoveries. He felt grateful for having made the decision to confront Richard and for helping his mother find her voice again. Now more than ever, he knew that true strength came from connection and love. With every step they took together, Ethan felt more confident, ready to face any challenge life presented them. He was prepared for anything because he knew that together, they were invincible. Ethan and Mary continued to tread their path of self-discovery and healing, each learning to deal with their own emotions. As the weeks passed, the relationship between mother and son grew even stronger. They became confidants, sharing moments of vulnerability that once seemed impossible. Mary, in seeking professional help, began to understand the roots of her insecurities. Her sessions with the therapist were revealing. She discovered that she had lost herself over the years by putting others' needs before her own. Now, she was determined to find herself again. The light in her eyes grew brighter each day, and Ethan felt proud to see his mother bloom once more. On the other hand, Ethan was also undergoing a transformation. In meetings with the youth group, he learned that he was not alone in facing family challenges. Sharing his experiences brought relief and new perspectives. He realized that his voice mattered, and that expressing his emotions was a sign of strength, not weakness. The bonds he formed with the other participants became a source of support, and together, they faced the ups and downs of life. One night, as they talked about their weeks, Mary looked at Ethan with a smile. "You know, I never imagined we could have a relationship like this. You have become a pillar in my life, and I hope to be the same for you." Ethan felt a wave of emotion. He not only helped his mother find herself again, but also found himself in the process. The journey they faced together not only healed them, but also united them in a way they could never have predicted. They were learning the importance of vulnerability and authenticity, which brought a new meaning to family life. Over time, Mary enrolled in a course she had always dreamed of taking, something she had postponed for a long time. Her happiness was contagious, and Ethan felt inspired to explore his own dreams. He decided to sign up for art classes, a passion he had always had, but never had the courage to pursue. Through creative expression, he found a new way to connect with his emotions. However, the journey was not easy. There were difficult days when Mary's insecurities resurfaced and Ethan felt overwhelmed. But instead of closing off, they learned to face these difficulties together. Through open dialogue and mutual support, they managed to transform these moments into opportunities for growth. Looking back, both Ethan and Mary realized how much they had evolved. They not only overcame challenges but also built a solid foundation of trust and love. The pain of the past began to fade, giving way to a new story, a story of resilience, courage, and redemption. Ethan looked at his mother, now full of life and purpose. "Mom, I am grateful for all of this, for allowing yourself to change, and for letting me be part of your journey. I learned that true strength lies in accepting our weaknesses and that love is the key to overcoming any obstacle." Mary smiled, her eyes shining with tears of joy. "Ethan, you taught me so much. Never underestimate the power of your voice and your love. We are in this together always." The story of Ethan and Mary is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest hours, it is possible to find the light. The true achievement lies not just in overcoming challenges, but in learning from them and thus transforming. May each person's journey inspire others to find the courage to face their own demons. If you identified with this story of overcoming and connection, share your experiences in the comments. Let's create a space where everyone can feel welcomed and inspired to pursue their own journeys of transformation. And don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Every interaction helps bring more content that touches the heart and inspires change. The time to act is now. What moment touched your heart the most or left you speechless? We really want to hear your opinion. Leave a comment below and share your thoughts with us. Your perspective is essential and helps us continue bringing stories as intense as this one. And if you know someone who needs to see a story of overcoming injustice like this, share this video. Let's spread these lessons of courage and transformation together. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. That way, you'll always be the first to catch our new exciting narratives. If you liked the story, give it a like and let us know what you thought in the comments. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.